And away we go. We have both of our runners starting off at Link's house. We find just a regular heart container. I do find that it's kind of interesting that for certain glitch modes, you actually don't want to find too many heart containers, just in case you need to do some death warps for some dungeon bunny revival. In any case, it looks like we're going to go check the Lake Hylia Island. We get a heart piece there. baliame is checking it just outright. Looks like thalane did not get the auto walk he was looking for. So what he was trying to do was hop onto the transition in such a way that it would kind of carry Link down halfway across the screen, which just puts him right to the island there. It's a really convenient clip, but he didn't quite get it, so he got stuck in the wall up there. Meanwhile, baliame is heading up to Sahazra, going to check the back three, possibly even talk to the Elder to figure out where his green pendant is. Nope, he's just going to go right on by. So thalane is trying to get the clip into the slope here. We find the Cane of Samaria and a couple of pieces of heart in the back of Sahazra's closet. Now, the deal with boots clipping is that there, at each of those bumps that you see on the slope where thalane is, there are 2 pixels that you can do an upwards teleport and a downwards teleport. So whether or not you get an upwards versus downwards is determined by the pixel on the bump that you're on. And it's only 2 pixels per bump, so you got to be really careful on that. And even if you get the right pixels, you got to also be on the right bumps to be able to do these certain ledge hops that we're trying to do. So in Sanctuary, we don't really find anything of note. Same with the Sanctuary Bonk Rocks. And it's going to be interesting to see who goes to go check Aghanim versus who goes to Death Mountain. What all are we going to find for information at the start of the seed here? A lot of people have different opinions as to what is really optimal. Some people decide to put Kakariko off pretty late because there are a whole bunch of fetch quests in there, such as the Sick Kid, the Powder Bat, and such. And it's just really good to have all of your stuff to do it all in one go. And you have such access with the boots in Overworld glitches that you might as well put it off for a little bit. So we find out that one of our tree pulls is just the arrows. We find the silvers in the Lost Woods drop hole. So we do have that already, which is nice. We do still need to find the bow, if we want to use those for Ganon or whatnot. Inside the Lumberjack Cave, it looks like I just saw... It was either a blue rupee or the blue cane. I'm not sure which. It was some blue item. Either way, it doesn't seem terribly important to our runners at the time, so we may not see Aghanim defeated for the Lumberjack item. Meanwhile, just some other green rupee at the mushroom spot. So far, only the Cane of Samaria in terms of progression for our runners. And it is the blue boomerang. Alright, so we do have confirmation on what that is. Again, not really the most useful thing in the world. And it looks like that baliame is going to be doing what we call the Lumberjack DMA, because we're over by the Lumberjack Cave, and we do a downward teleport on this bump, do a couple of hops, and now we're up in the clouds on Death Mountain. Interestingly enough, the clouds are actually made out of water. Now he's also going to get into a relatively precise precision to just do a dash hop inbounds there and be right next to Hera. Now he does already have full magic, probably from some enemy drop or something. I'm not entirely sure which, so he is going to be able to use his Cane of Samaria to go and use these crystal switches. Meanwhile, thalane was farming some bombs in front of the Flute Grove and is heading toward Cave 45. So we're going to be able to see what that item is. Possibly also a Gina's Cave, because he does have that bomb. He might be saving it for Kakariko. There's 3 more in Cave 45, which is really nice for the early game, getting those bombs. In Hera, we find a hint that there is a unique item in Turtle Rock. That's good to know for right now, especially because we do have that Cane of Samaria. That gives us a lot of access to Turtle Rock once we get there. Now, access to Turtle Rock is actually pretty simple. You just need the mirror and mitts, or the mirror and hammer, or the pearl. And speaking of the pearl, we see it on the race game there. Now, thalane has kind of paused for a bit. I'm wondering if he's trying to remember how to cheat the race game. It's very important on this one. There is an upward teleport you can do here that will take you to desert, but if you turn to the side on that upward teleport, then you can go and cheat the race game by hitting it from below. He didn't quite get it, so he's gonna he's either racking his brain or gonna look up a clip. I'm not entirely sure which. We find more bombs in Spectacle Rock Cave, and we see that there is a unique item in plain sight. That could be the Moon Pearl. thalane is trying to figure out the geometry at the race game. It's really wonky. Even when you do the teleports, because he's doing upward teleports to go up to the item. He does need to face to the side for this to work, though, which is really kind of weird. Meanwhile, baliame is heading into the old man cave to go rescue him. He's using some dash dust to see what's going on inside of the dark cave. Not too terribly difficult. The only real danger in there is the hole by the door where you pick up the old man and the bats, but the bats don't really do any damage, so we're not too worried about any kind of deaths. Thalane is really trying to get this item, but he's not at the right... He's got to do that dash turn to the side. Instead, it looks like he's just going to go around and just bomb open the wall between the brothers and do it that way. There is also a way to cheat the race game from above by hopping down at a relatively precise location, but that does get you completely stuck. If you cheat from below at the race game, then you can actually get back out of it. Instead, he's just going to go through it normally here. We get some rupees from the old man, but we also get that very important Death Mountain save point. We'll be seeing that a lot this run. It's kind of funny how many times you wind up doing the clip that... Oh no, it looks like baliame is going to be doing a clip to Graveyard Ledge. Unfortunately, he didn't get it, and he got soft-locked there. He's going to save and quit, probably go back to the mountain and try it again. He's trying to hop in such a way that he lands and can trigger that transition down. We find a bottle in the library, which is really nice for those Kakariko fetch quests that I was talking about earlier. Baliame is really trying to get this. He does get the transition down, so now he's checking the Graveyard Ledge Cave, which does give him a nice set of bomb refill here. Nice 4 easy bombs. In the back of Tavern, we find our first sword. We find another bottle filled with a blue potion in the Graveyard Cave. That's actually really nice. Blue potions are very good in Overworld glitches because we are allowed to do what is called a Yuzuhara's Bottle Adventure, which is using a potion on the same frame as a transition, and if you do that on the overworld with a blue potion, then it actually brings up the flute menu, no matter where you are. So you can actually use the flute in the dark world and get some access really early on, even without the moon pearl. So that's pretty nice to see. Inside the chicken house, we see the cape. It's not really that important. It is an invulnerability item, which could be relevant for Spike Cave, but beyond that, we don't actually need it for the bumper ledge item. We see some regular arrows on the floating island up on Death Mountain, so nothing too good there. Baliame's aim is going to try to hop back and bounce over here by this water. It's kind of tricky just with all the water that's there. Meanwhile, we've got Kakariko Well with some hearts and a whole bunch of other stuff we're going to see in just a moment. That nice 50 rupees to bring Thalane up to 100, which is very good for the bottle merchant. We also see the mushroom, some more money, and some more money. That mushroom is going to be very nice, especially with this cane that we have very early on. Then to scan in Sahazra list that Thalane has not been there yet, but if we do have that cane, then we can do the fake powder glitch at the powder bat. That's not required by logic, but it is something our runners can do to avoid needing to search for the powder to check that particular item. Baliame is meanwhile going through the spiral cave, using the cane of Samara to good effect as Thalane is hitting the Blind's Hut. In Spiral Cave, we just get a piece of heart. In Blind's Hut, we get the other boomerang, so we have at least one of them now. Meanwhile, we've got a bunch of money in Blind's Hut, which is very good. Wow! That's enough for Zora. And we also find the book. Now, we can actually check both of the tablets now, but we don't quite have a second sword to be able to check the item from those particular tablets yet. We do need the Master Sword before we can get that item. Meanwhile, we're in Paradox Cave on Baliame's side. Get some more bombs. A lot of bombs. Good to be fully up on bombs at that point. It's nice when you don't need to buy bombs for all the different places that you can go to. There are, of course, those nice bomb refill locations like the Graveyard Ledge Cave, but just being able to find a whole bunch of them on the way is very nice as well. More bombs. A heart container. We're actually getting a pedestal check from Thalane right now. It's just a mail upgrade, so I bet we're not going to get that for right now. More bombs, more money, and more arrows in Paradox Cave. Baliame doesn't feel like killing those mini Moldorms anymore, so he's just going to peace out from Death Mountain for now. So now we've got Thalane. He's going toward, I'm guessing, Death Mountain. He's got a sword now, which makes many clips a lot easier because you have access to spin speed, which, when you have spin speed armed, lets you just walk through certain slopes, which is very nice for certain clips. looks like thalane is going to be doing the classical DMA, where he's going to teleport over this transition, and then transition to the right. Now, that teleport over the transition actually updates his global position and his local position in kind of a desynced way. So that transition to the right does put him on Death Mountain. However, he does need to fix his camera a bit so that Link is properly on screen. If he doesn't do that, then that transition is going to take an extra 2 minutes. So it's very important to fix your transition, and so you take that extra time, despite all the boulders and the dead rocks being in your way. Meanwhile, baliame is going to do the clear through Kakariko. Has a lot of stuff that he needs there. He doesn't have that mushroom, though. That we get in the well, so he might check the powder bat here. Just use up the rest of his magic, although that is a bit worrisome because he won't have... never mind. He'll have that sword from I believe, the back of the tavern. So he'll have a weapon that he can use. He just won't have that Cane of Samaria. Not without refilling his magic anyway, if he decides to go for the fake powder route. Meanwhile, thalane is... Oh, thalane, you don't... Okay, he's got the spin speed arm, and he's doing that particular clip to get to the Graveyard Ledge. It's a little bit different from what baliame did, but it's the same sort of principle, just hopping through that ledge in a precise way so that you can hit that transition. So now thalane is up to 2 bottles, again, one with the blue goo, that he can possibly trade in for a fake flute later on, or at worst, use it for just a simple health refill. So now we're going to be doing some backtracking on both of our players as far as what they've already done. thalane is using a spin speed there to go through the cliff and wrap the screen, which puts him up at the top of that particular screen, which takes him up to Hera. So he can go ahead and clear out Hera at this point. He's got the big key, he's got the sword, he can clear out this dungeon now. He won't be able to do the basement, though, because he is lacking that fire source, but the rest of it is clearable at this point. And hey, he might get lucky. The mapper compass might be down there, and not even need to check that chest. And that's just what we're going to see out the lane. He's going to head upstairs, so it's very nice for him to have that sword in this first run through Tower of Hera. There's also a nice couple of bomb drops that you can use to help bring his bomb count back up to top. Meanwhile, we're seeing baliame try to do the powder bat clip. Now he's doing this jump over the transition, then hitting it from the other side, which does this weird screen wrap, which moves Link halfway across the screen, just like the auto walk for the Lake Hylia item would do. But it also messes up his camera in a weird way. Now, he does have his magic completely emptied, and when he tries to use the cane, he gets that nice little buzzer, and if he switches to Mushroom quick enough, then it just uses the powder anyway. That's the only item that this particular trick works with to get that sort of secondary effect. But it does let us check the powder bat item with only the Mushroom. So it seems like we got a hint for Tower of Hera that says the basement is trash, which is good. So we know we don't need to return to Hera once we're done with it, despite not having a fire source for the basement. So now baliame is heading down to this bombable hut, but he's going to clip onto this ledge, and he might be doing the cheat for the race game that I was talking about earlier, where you hit it from above. So it is a slightly different way that you get there. You hop to it in a different way. That's not the right bump. It's supposed to be the fourth one. There you go. He gets it. Now, again, you're soft-locked from this position, although he does find a way to get out of it by just doing a quick hop down. That's good. I actually didn't know that you could get out of that, so that's good on baliame for figuring that out. I'll have to figure out exactly how to do that, because that's very nice. We find out that Tower of Hera is a green pendant, though. So, thalane, having not checked Sahasrahla now, will get the green pendant turn-in, as well as the Cane of Samaria from the back there, which is very nice for thalane. Could also combine that into checking Eastern Palace at some point to check out the front, see what's there. However, he does have that Moon Pearl, which gives him great access to the Dark World. We're also going to check the Ether Tablet, just has some couch cash. We don't need to return to that item later once we have the requisite sword. Meanwhile, baliame is checking K45, might head over to Desert or Agena. I don't think thalane checked either of those, so those might be new checks for us as we're going forward. Spectacle Rock Cave, I believe we checked this already. Oh yeah, it said that a unique item was in plain sight for the hint here. So now we're getting an Agena check. Meanwhile, thalane is doing the Spectre Rock bomb jump. It's a simple one as long as you get the right lineups. And it's actually got a pretty wide window for where you can place the bomb and stand. So, not too terribly difficult. In Agena's Cave, we get some money as thalane is heading over to the east side of Death Mountain. He's going to be going into this nice little void here. Normally, when you hop off the ledge, it just puts you in a void and you just fall down. But turns out you can actually walk down here, and there's that weird little geometry where thalane just jumped that I guess the developers forgot to put in, because it's there in the dark world, but not in the light world. It's kind of weird. Meanwhile, we're checking the Bombos tablet, also Couch Cash. So our tablets are not very good for our runners today. We do see a piece of heart on the desert ledge, and it looks like that baliame is going to be doing a Overworld bomb clip, which is using the bomb explosion plus some very precise pixel and even sub-pixel movement to be able to use this bomb explosion to clip up the ledge so you can dash jump over to the side. It's very precise to be able to get these to work. And he's having a bit of trouble. He's used 2 bombs already. I wonder how far he's going to take it. Meanwhile, thalane is finishing up the Paradox Cave. Doesn't have too much more to check. I don't think he's done Spiral Cave yet, so he might be checking the island, the floating island up there, as well as Spiral Cave by doing this bomb jump here. May even be setting up a trip to Zora, which would be kind of nice. He could do that as well. So we are getting our dip into Desert Palace. We find the ether on the torch, which is a good thing. A shield is in the purple chest from the hint, so we know we don't need to go that far with that particular side quest chain. We get thalane checking the arrows on the floating island, and he's now doing the Spiral Cave as baliame is going through desert. Inside, we find the big key. Looks like he's going to go check the big chest first before hitting the other side. Might even try to set up a death warp to hit the 2 chests on the right side, then just death warp back to the west entrance. At least that's what I might try. We do find the small key, so we did have to come here, of course, because we already saw the other 2 available checks before hitting the right side. So now thalane is going to turn in the mushroom right now. Now he hasn't done the powder bat, but he did just do a fresh save and quit, so we might see a reset off of thalane if this mushroom is particularly junk. Alright, so just the map. Alright, we do see some damage. I don't know if he's going to take it too much farther than that. Doesn't really care about canceling the dash, so we might try to set it up. Nope, just going to save and quit out of the desert. He can't finish off land molas anyway without the fire source, and he already saw the desert ledge, so he might be done with that area for now. We do find out that the mushroom turn-in is just a piece of heart. However, thalane decides to save and quit, so he lost access to that powder bat check. However, we do know that it's junk from baliame doing that earlier with the fake powder. So now we have both of our runners heading towards South Shore. baliame just a little bit ahead with this particular check here. We find our second sword. So we do get to save a little bit of time by not having to watch the tablet animations, but we do know that they are both junk. So that's pretty nice. Outside the dam, we see that we find a little bit of cash. We don't really need it right now. We've got more than enough money for the rest of the seed, I think. We've got enough for flippers. We've got enough for Kiki. And we even have enough to buy the super bomb, although I doubt we would even need to do that. So now both of our runners are heading over to the mini Moldorm cave. Again, this is a first check for both of our runners. It's kind of interesting to see them synced up after kind of diverging quite a bit in this early game. They're trying to use some bombs to help speed up the Moldorm kills, however, they're not really cooperating very well, especially on the Thalane side, where they're just separated top and bottom on that left side. Inside, though, we find some rupees, some more rupees, some half magic, which is a nice refill for baliame, some more rupees, so now we're definitely fine on cash, and a nice little bomb refill. Now I suspect that both of our runners are going to head over to Ice Rock Cave and possibly arm some Water Walk. So water walking can be can be done in two different ways. There's one way which is just fake flippering into the waterfall fairy, then exiting while you have the moon pearl. But there's another way where if you dash near a pit and that dash gets interrupted by either a bonk, or you interrupt the charging of the dash in a precise way, or by dashing by a pit out an entrance, it'll arm this water walk state. And it's pretty resilient. However, you activate it by jumping south into deep water. So we might see that out of our runners here. Thalane using a spin setup to get close to the edge. baliame just eyeballing it. It's actually a pretty wide window to dash out of the entrance there and still have the water walk armed. So there we go. Both of our runners got it. And they're both heading right to the Zora area. This is some fantastic synchronization. Both heading into the waterfall fairy. And we find heart container and another sword. So we're already up to tempered, which is really nice for all those boss fights we might be coming up to later on. It's kind of interesting to see exactly how synced up this is. Wow. Even with little changes in where they dash versus walk, and they're still this synced up. This is kind of funny to see. Alright, so now where do our runners decide to go? baliame might be heading into the Dark World now. Can use the Pearl in combination with some spin speed to check some Dark World locations. He's first going to do a clip to wrap the screen, go up to Hera, and thalane is doing the same. baliame actually needs to complete Hera now. thalane was able to do this earlier thanks to that sword he got from the back of the tavern. baliame decided to do Kakariko later, so he got that sword later. So now we're getting a Dark World check out of thalane. We haven't gotten a map check in the Dark World. I believe we got one in the Light World, but I don't remember what the different pendants and crystals were. Now we see thalane trying to arm some spin speed so he can hop through. Oh, he didn't quite get the hop he wanted. He's having some trouble getting this hop. There he goes. He gets a bonk into another funny auto walk thing, just like the Lake Hylia item, or what you would do for that. You can see how Link just kind of walks through everything, including the trees. So it's pretty nice to be able to pull that off where you can. We're also going to get a bumper cave check here. It's just a piece of heart, so we're going to ignore it, although we could get it now. Despite not having a glove, and we wouldn't even need the cape for it. So now we're getting a check into Village of Outcasts. Getting that Dark World check, we find that Swamp and Turtle Rock are our other two pendants. I believe Pod was a red crystal. I didn't catch if it was Ice or Pod. I think it was Pod. I'm not entirely sure. It was rather quick. We find the Fire Rod in Sea House, so that does open up the entirety of Skull Woods to us. We can finish that dungeon off as soon as possible here. And in fact, with thalane dashing up, he's going to go ahead and do that. Meanwhile, baliame is finishing up Tower of Hera here. We'll get the arrows and the green pendant off of Moldorm. So, we get a little bit of bonks here from the Style in the Bushes and Skull Woods. Kind of annoying. Really the most annoying of all the bush prizes you could possibly get. Now, thalane doesn't have the Canis Samari, which would make this mummy room a bit easier. We do know that that's in the Sahasrah's hut, and we haven't seen that check in his case at all, even though he does have that that green pendant from Moldor. And we do get a map check from baliame, which does confirm that the red crystal was in Pod. My eyes were not deceiving me. So now we see baliame doing what we call the T-Rock climb. Now you do a downward teleport to that seam, and from there you just do some half-circle backs. If you're from a fighting game community, you just kind of roll your thumb from right over to down and then to left. You just do that a few times, and you just kind of kick up the slope a bunch, because you're kind of stuck in a wall in a weird way. So thalane is going to finish up the back of Skull Woods as baliame is heading over to the Super Bunny Cave. Inside we find just a shield and some rupees, not particularly useful. Now, Thalane's got the half magic from Mini Moldorm Cave, which is kind of nice. However, he is a little bit low on hearts. He's got to be kind of careful for this upcoming moth fight. I'm sure he'll do fine enough with it, but it's still a bit scary considering he's still on green mail. Alright, so we see that the entrance to Turtle Rock is the Ether Medallion, which we did get off of the Desert Torch for baliame. So he's going to open that up. He has the Cane of Samaria, so we can at least check one of the chests, the one on the left side of this entrance here. A nice quick kill of Mothula from Thalane, so that is another dungeon down and the first crystal of the match. Alright, so baliame decided to not even go inside Turtle Rock, and is instead deciding to do what we call the Laser Bridge screen wrap clip. Now this is out of logic. This is not required at all in logic, so he's currently checking something that he doesn't necessarily have access to. He's having a little bit of trouble getting the spin speed to work through the slope here. You gotta be kind of careful with it. Now he's going to hop over the transition just like with the powder back clip, but he's got to position himself in a certain way. Uh-oh, he jumped incorrectly. He actually doesn't need to save and quit there. He could have gone into the Super Bunny Cave to fix his camera and try again. However, he's going to go ahead and take that save and quit. Meanwhile, Thalane is doing a death warp from the chest at the front. I don't believe either of the items that we saw from that side of Skull Woods were of any use, although we did get that crystal. So now Thalane is going to backtrack the rest of Skull Woods. I'm not even sure if we got the big key yet for this dungeon. Kind of hard to pay attention to both sides. I thought baliame already checked this tablet. Maybe it was only Thalane, so he's going to check it with the Tempered Sword, get that couch cash. As Thalane is checking the other side of Skull Woods. There's our big key. Okay, so we hadn't seen that yet. So he's still going through Skull Woods, so I'm guessing he did not check, or he did not get both of the items out of Skull Woods yet, so we're still on the hunt for those. There's one of them. If he goes through this key door, then there's still one more at large. Alright, we do still have one at large. Meanwhile, baliame is going to be doing another Overworld bomb clip to get up to this area by Ganon's Tower and hopefully attempt that screen wrap clip to Laser Bridge again. However, he didn't kick himself out of the wall properly, so he's got to do this bomb clip again, unfortunately due to him hopping down. So he's got to be very careful with this. Gets the bomb clip again, and kicks himself out of the wall properly so he doesn't hop down, and now he's off to do the screen wrap clip again. Meanwhile, Thalane is done with Skull Woods and will be likely heading over to Village of Outcasts to, at the very least, do the front 4 of Thieves Town, if not the full set. However, because he did a death warp in Skull Woods, he wound up in what we call fake Dark World, which is where the overworld screen is Dark World, but the game thinks he's in the Light World. So he would be on that Dark World screen, going in and out of the entrance is just fine, but as soon as he caused that overworld transition out of the Skull Woods area, then the game resolved and went back to the Light World. So it's unfortunate that that death warp screwed him over in that way. However, it's not too terribly hard to get to the to get back to Skull Woods here. It looks like he's heading into Ganon's Tower right now because he's got his screen wrapped. Did he find the mirror somewhere? Oh no, he's doing the Death Mountain Super Drop. That's what he's doing. So this is kind of a fun clip here. He's going to be jumping down, and he actually wraps the screen 4 times, jumps down again, wraps another 4 times, and this takes him from Death Mountain all the way down to the swamp area. Now, unfortunately, while I was focusing on that, I missed out what baliame found on the Laser Bridge. We find the powder, which is kind of nice. However, he decides that he doesn't want to check any more of Turtle Rock at that time, so we are done with Turtle Rock for now. So Thalane went and entered Swamp to be able to fix his camera since he had it wrapped from that Death Mountain Super Drop. And this puts him all the way at the bottom of the world, which is very nice because he's kind of done with the top area for right now, at least over by Skull Woods. So he's going to be able to check Height Cave and head over to Village of Outcasts from the south area, checking Stumpy and the Dig Game on the way, which will be very nice for him there. Inside Hype Cave, we're not getting much so far. Junk, 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 and junk. Oh well. So now we're getting some more checks through the Village of Outcasts area. baliame is heading up to the Bumper Cave to check that out. And we'll be heading into Village of Outcasts, get the fire rod from Z-House, and we'll be able to see if he decides to go and complete Skullwoods the same way that thalane did. Meanwhile, thalane is checking out the Stumpy check here as he's heading over to Village of Outcasts from the south side. Just a piece of heart, so nothing too important so far. As far as what our runners are missing from each side, thalane needs to head to Sahazrila to get the Cane of Samaria. Meanwhile, Desert holds the Ether Medallion on the Torch. And Powder is in the Laser Bridge, which we actually don't have access to yet. Meanwhile, thalane picking up the fire rod that he was missing from Z-House that thalane had already grabbed. Meanwhile, I think it looks like Bombo's Medallion for Misery Mire. It's hard to tell with the glitchy rain effects, which actually occur because the game didn't have time to actually load the proper rain overlay. So it kind of just does its best and loads whatever it can, which turns out to be a glitchy mess. Now, when he goes back to the overworld here, the game finally has time to be able to load the right overlay, and we'll get the proper rain. So now thalane is done with this little mire area after checking the mire hut, and we'll be heading over to the digging game. He could have transitioned going up, but it's a little bit risky due to all the trees right here on the south border of this screen, because if you wind up in them, you're stuck and can't get out of it. So thalane baliame did decide to go through Skullwoods after picking up the fire rod from Z-House, and he's kind of just waiting for a Wallmaster to come and take him back to the entrance here. Interesting thing about that is a way of getting back to the entrance of a dungeon without the mirror, while it still saves your world variable. So he's still in the Dark World for right now, which is kind of important if he decides to go for Village of Outcasts after finishing off Skullwoods here. That's one thing that thalane did not put into practice, which unfortunately caused him to have to go back up to Death Mountain to clip back into the Dark World. Although he did use it to advantage to instead take a south route through the Dark World, hitting the Hype Cave and all of that. So now we're getting the south checks of Village of Outcasts, hitting the brewery, likely up to Chest Game, then up to Thieves Town. And the brewery just finds some junk. baliame a bit healthier here for the moth fight, so might be a bit easier of a moth fight there. However, thalane's was certainly nice and quick. Inside the chest game, we get the 50 rupees. So far, just the fire rod out of Village of Outcasts in terms of progression. Also a relatively quick moth fight for baliame. So that is that dungeon done. And the first crystal for baliame. It's going to be interesting to see what thalane decides to do with Thieves Town not having the hammer. It is a crystal dungeon, so we might go ahead and see it all the way through. However, he does lack the hammer, which could lock the big chest from him. And checking that chest later on just takes a lot of time, and a lot of people do not like to skip that chest if they can help it. Alright, so it looks like that baliame is setting up a death warp, so he is going to get that fake Dark World state that I was talking about that thalane got earlier. So that preservation that he did from the Wallmaster doesn't actually matter anymore, because now the game thinks he's in Light World, despite being on this Dark World Overworld screen. However, he is going to go ahead and backtrack to the front of Skullwoods and clear out that section. Meanwhile, thalane did decide to go through the back of Thieves Town, so we are going to get at least 3 more checks out of this dungeon. However, unless we find the hammer in a very lucky spot, we are not going to be able to check the big chest right now. And we find out that the left side of Swamp Palace is junk. That's always a nice hint to get. Saves our time when we finally decide to go to that dungeon. So, baliame got the first item out of Skull Woods. There's one more in the big chest with the big key over on the right side, as thalane is blowing up the hole in the attic. So far, just finding junk up there. He's got the map and the compass, so there is an item inside. Actually, not entirely sure. There could still be the small key. He might get lucky if the small key is in the Thieves' Town big chest. But if it isn't, then there is an item there. Alright, so baliame, knowing that he was in fake Dark World, decided to save and quit out of Skull Woods instead of test his luck with the Overworld transition, which we know would resolve him back to the Light World and make him stuck. Thalane, meanwhile, in the prison area of Thieves' Town, tries to pick up the rock, realizes he doesn't have gloves, and has to go around. So baliame fixing his camera in Tower of Hera, so he might be heading to Village of Outcasts from here to check out Thieves' Town. Oh, we do get the small key, so there is an item inside the Thieves' Town big chest. We are going to have to return here later with the hammer if we still are looking for progression later on in the seed. That's going to be interesting. Oh, and we saw a Ganon's Tower clip out of baliame, so he decided to wrap the screen from the bottom and then hop in a certain way that lands him up on the upper end of the tower near the top of the stairs, and is able to enter the dungeon normally. Now, despite the fact that we have access to Ganon's Tower, we still need to complete all of the crystal dungeons before Ganon is vulnerable at the tail end. So we could finish off Ganon's Tower here if we had all the requisite items, despite not having all of the crystals, but we still need to complete all those dungeons. All right, so we do get the big key and the Cane of Birna in the first couple of chests here. I don't think he checked the torch. I might be wrong. I might have just missed that. Meanwhile, looks like that we are getting a right side check. And darn it, I missed what a blind drop for thalane after finishing Thieves' Town there. Nonetheless, that is the second crystal for thalane, cleaning up nice dungeons. Okay, only 50 rupees from blind, and we did get a check of the GT torch, which happened to be a small key, and I guess baliame is using that one to open up the right side. With the Cane of Samaria and the Fire Rod, he actually does have logical access to these, because we do require our runners to know how to do the Ganon's Tower clip. Inside the tower room, we find our first glove. Now, we do need it. We do need at least one glove to complete Ice Palace because of the big rock blocking Cold Stare at the bottom. Otherwise, we could actually complete this entire seed without them, given that we have different ways of checking various glove lock locations, such as Hookshot Cave or even, I guess, a couple of... I'm trying to think of other actual glove lock locations that we have access to, but there aren't actually too many. Nonetheless, on the right side, we find junk, and junk in GT Basement, so the right side wound up being a bit of a bust. We're going to recoup our lost small key before saving quitting out of the dungeon here. Although, he's going to go ahead and continue the right side all the way up to Ice Armos, which is good. There could possibly be progression back there. He's going to use the freshly acquired Cane of Birna to go ahead and just go through this particular room. It's kind of nasty if you don't know how to take it slow in there, so... Meanwhile, thalane is deciding to go through Desert Palace, has the Fire Rod, so we'll be able to complete this dungeon all in one go and collect that crystal, whereas baliame will have to take another trip later on just for Lanmolas. Alright, baliame decided to double back for the GT Big Chest real quick. Finds the Quake Medallion. That's not one that we need. We already opened up Turtle Rock on Baliame's side, although he did not enter it. And we know that the Misery Mire needs Bombo, so Quake is sadly not of any use to our runners this time around. Not entirely sure what, Oh, he was just using up his magic so he could fake powder to get rid of that anti-fairy. Alright. I was kind of confused why he was bringing up Cape and all that. Now he's going to head down to Ice Armos. Unfortunately, he doesn't have any magic. The Cane of Buren is actually your second best item to use against Ice Armos, other than the bow. Third best is, of course, Sword Beams. So he's just going to spam the crap out of some Sword Beams to take care of these Ice Armos. Meanwhile, Thalane is checking out Nagina. I don't think he's been up to Lanmolas yet, so he might be doing another clip. He's going to check out Bombos. We saw from Baliame's side that was just going to be some junk cash. But he's going to go ahead and check it with the Tempered Sword and get that. So, despite knowing that both of our tablets are trash, each of our runners are getting one of them while checking the other with an insufficient sword. Kind of funny in that regard. Behind Ice Armos, we get a couple of pieces of heart and the Flippers. Now, the Flippers only logically lock the Swamp Palace. We actually do require our runners to know fake Flippers to be able to check things like Zora, Waterfall, and the Hobo. Now, to answer a question in chat from Midnight Wonko, why did the Armos not move for a long time? It turns out they have to actually stand in their positions from that first separation at the start. Once they are all standing there, then they start spinning around. However, if you continually hit them out of place, preventing them from getting into that first set of positions in that circle, then they just won't start their ring around the rosy. So now both of our runners are back in Dark World, going to be seeing a clip down from Baliame as Thalane is doing a clip up using the Turtle Rock clip that we saw earlier out of Baliame. Alright, so we are seeing Thalane check Hookshot Cave. This is an interesting clip. So he's going to be jumping down in a particular way so he can jump onto this ledge and jump down again. And now he's up on the floating island and can enter the Hookshot Cave from the rear. And so now he might be checking just the chest at the front, and we might even see a hover here in Hookshot Cave. Now this clip is actually in logic for our runners, I believe. So this first chest in Hookshot Cave is relevant. I don't believe we saw it at a Baliame, so we might see something important here. We find junk. Unfortunate. However, Thalane is going to try for a hover here, at least to attempt to check a couple more of these chests. Meanwhile, Baliame is cleaning up Village of Outcasts, which we've already seen out of Thalane. We unfortunately didn't see anything of note from Thieves Town as we went through, and we know that the hammer currently locks our Thieves Town big chest, which does have an item of some sort. We don't know what. So now we're getting a Super Money Cave check out of Thalane. We do know that we're going to find just some junk here as well. Small shield and some rupees, I believe. Alright, so now Thalane might try to go into Turtle Rock and clear out some chests. We did see Laser Bridge out of Baliame earlier, which housed the powder, but I don't think we saw anything else. The Cane of Samari we do know is at Sahazrala, along with a green pendant turn-in that we haven't seen from either runner, despite Hera being the first dungeon that these runners have completed. So Thalane is going to check the chests that he can from this side of Turtle Rock, which is only going to be the big key chest and chomps, unless he finds the big key in either of those chests. From there, he might be able to check the big chest as well as the crystal roller, which is just past the big key door, right after the big chest. So we'll be able to possibly see those items if we're lucky with the Thieves Town, or not the Thieves Town, the Turtle Rock item placement. And actually, we have not seen Eastern Palace out of either runner either, so a trip to that part of the world might be good for both of our runners to take. We do have those items in Eastern Palace, plus that green pendant turn-in. possibly waiting for us. There's our hint for the left side swamp again, giving us reconfirmation that the left side of swamp is garbage. Unfortunately, we didn't get the big key in either of the two chests available to Thalane in Turtle Rock, so there isn't any point in him continuing on, despite him having a sequence-breaking possibility of checking the laser bridge chests. So now, where do you go? There is the Sahazrala and Eastern checks, as I've been bringing up recently. Otherwise, there's not too much else on this side of the world that I think our runners can check. There is the catfish check that we could see, and that could be converted to a rudimentary pod check, despite not having the bow or the hammer. We might see that out of the lane. But he does not have the flippers, so I guess he might be just doing the clip from Turtle Rock down to Catfish. We might be seeing that here. Although I guess I missed it. There must have been a glove in one of the chests in Turtle Rock. And I failed to point that out, because I don't believe that Thalane went to GT, so we know where both of our gloves are. So we do see Thalane do that catfish clip from the Turtle Rock entrance, which is another one of those auto-walk things, just like the Death Mountain descent that we did to get to Village of Outcasts, just like the one you would do to go to the Lake Hylia item. However, the catfish is just a heart container, and we've got plenty as it stands, so we're going to go ahead and skip that. Now, it's interesting to note that we have access to both of our gloves, which means that puts Ice Palace, the Smith, and the Purple Chest into Logic. We do have now logical access to those areas. Now, realistically, we could skip the mitts for all of those locations using some sequence-breaking clips and glitches, but turns out they might not be required. So Thalane, going from Catfish all the way up to the pyramid, going to go ahead and check that item, which will kill any particular use out of the going to kill Aghanim 1. Turns out it's just junk, as we get some junk rupees from Blind. Baliame, are you going to get that crystal? Okay, there it is. Now we're heading over to Palace of Darkness on Thalane's side. It's going to be interesting to see what Baliame decides to do from here. He could head over to Catfish using the flippers to just swim across the river and head over to Palace of Darkness that way. Possibly Catfish. I'm not sure which he's going to go for yet. Alright, so he's opting to take a Death Warp here. Kind of interesting. I guess he wants that fake Dark World state so he can transition and be on the Light World. I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe he wants to go check Pedestal or something? I don't know. Meanwhile, we are going through Palace of Darkness on Thalane's side. Inside we find the small keys, so we are not bow-locked yet in Palace of Darkness. That's good to know. Could be that Baliame is heading over for a Desert Palace check, or to finish that off, just to go kill Lanmolas. He does have that glove, so he'll be able to clip down to Desert from here, pick up the rock, go kill Lanmolas, and be done with that dungeon. And we actually haven't seen that on Thalane's side, because he opted to go for the Agina Cave check instead of going to kill Lanmolas. We also haven't seen Checkerboard yet, so this could be some possibly new information for us. It's the hammer! Oh boy. So we were expected to go to either Turtle Rock or Ganon's Tower before we headed to Desert to be able to pick up that hammer. That's a very nice find for Baliame here. The hammer is one of those very elusive items in Overworld glitches due to the number of locations it can be, as well as the number of places it actually locks, considering it's a good portion of Ice Palace, a good portion of Ganon's Tower, and the Thieves' Town Big Chest, and pretty much the entirety of Swamp, too. So the hammer is a very important item, and very lucky for baliame to stumble across that in Checkerboard Cave. So we are looking at the hint in Palace of Darkness, just some cash and Blind's Hideout. We've already seen that area, so it's rather unimportant. We might be seeing a potion glitch out of Thalane here. This is a camera unlock, so what is happening here is he is going to be using a potion while walking to the left, which lets him let the camera move just a little bit more than he does, and so it doesn't quite hit a locking point. And so now, since it's not locked, he's able to go into the next room and get the mimics to go off-screen, which, as far as the game is concerned, considers all the enemies dead as soon as they are all off-screen. So the door opens, and he's able to continue through the bow-locked section of Pod. And inside we get a small key, and he's setting up a death warp as well. And we find the lamp. So that's pretty fortunate to find in Palace of Darkness here. We're not going to be taking any guesses as to what we find in the Dark Maze and such. So that's very lucky for the lane there. However, this Death Warp is going to put him into another fake Dark World state. However, I doubt he was going to head out of the Overworld section of Palace of Darkness anyway, so this Death Warp is perfectly fine. Meanwhile, we are done with Desert on baliame's side, picking up his third crystal. I don't think we got anything important from the Landmola's drop. I don't recall if we got both the items out of Desert earlier or if the second one was on Landmola's anyway. So now with that glove, I think baliame is going to head to the back of Escape, check these last three chests here. If he finds the key, he might head into the rest of the sewers, despite being in the dark, and check out the Dark Cross item. Meanwhile, we're getting a hammer jump out of Thalane here, which is a double pixel perfect bomb jump, which gets him right into the Dark Maze without needing to spend a key. It can be pretty nice, because he only needs one more key to be able to clear out the rest of the chests outside of the Helmasaur King, so we might set up a Death Warp from here. I don't know. He might spend that key and hit the just the Rupee hallway chests here. Who knows? So once again, I wasn't paying attention to the chests that were coming up, and I've missed all the stuff that we got out of the back of Escape. He did not go through the rest of the sewers, so I guess we didn't find the small key there. We do find the flute and another small key in the Rupee hallway of Palace of Darkness. The flute is actually is not at all necessary for our runners, as we saw Thalane clipping into Misery Mire earlier. So we don't actually need the flute for anything, since in normal no glitches logic, that's the only thing preventing you from getting to the Mire area. However, activating the flute is still a nice thing to do because it can definitely speed up some of your overworld movement. However, being an hour in already, we might not even see that. Alright, so now Thalane is checking the back three of Escape. I'll be able to see if we got all junk or if there was progression that I missed. Meanwhile, baliame is heading up through the south section of the Dark World, checking out Stumpy, checking out the Dig Game. He hasn't quite done those yet. We're probably heading over into Misery Mire. Could fully clear that dungeon with the equipment set that he has. He has the Ether Medallion, he has the Cane of Samaria, he has a Fire Source. So that dungeon might be full cleared out of baliame. Meanwhile, we are getting an escape check from Thalane. This is the first time we've seen the Uncle chests or the escape sequence outside of the back three, so classic overworld glitches as we see in chat there. Yep. It's very common for escape to be a late check. Uncle just has some allowance, and some more allowance hidden in the chest here. And now off to the rest of the castle. It's always one fun little game to play with the overworld glitches. Can you actually clip out of the slope before the timer runs out? Unfortunately, baliame was not quite successful in doing that. I don't think thalane was either. It's kind of difficult, especially when your digging game item comes up late, but it's still just a fun little thing to do. Alright, so baliame deciding not to go into Misery Mire. Oh, my mistake. It was the Bombos medallion for Misery Mire. It was Ether for Turtle Rock. My mistake. I thought he had the medallion for it, but I forgot that it was the other way around, that Ether was for Turtle Rock. Alright, so now baliame is trying to do a spin speed clip through that little cliff to be able to check Hobo. As thalane is finishing up the escape sequence, we still haven't gotten anything of note from there. Which does give the escape sequence its kind of tongue-in-cheek name of the 4th Pendant Dungeon. He is also setting up a death warp here to be able to check the Dark Cross in just a moment, after picking up the chest here in the jail cell. Oh no, it was his 4th heart piece, so that gave him a full health refill, and now he's got to sit here and just get wailed on by this green guard. Oh no. You hate to see that happen. Still goes for the death warp. So we're going to be able to see what that Dark Cross chest is, especially because thalane has that lamp. It's going to be nice to be able to see what it actually is. So baliame heading to escape, following right in thalane's footsteps. Unfortunately, we'll not be finding anything of note unless we find something from this Dark Cross chest that thalane is heading toward right now. Just some money. So, thalane actually has some cleaning up he needs to do. He needs to go to Sahasrahla to get the Cane of Samaria. He needs to go to Ganon's Tower to get the flippers behind Ice Armos. And he needs to go to Checkerboard Cave to pick up the hammer. All very important items for this seed. He might be heading to Ganon's Tower right now. He is keeping his screen wrapped. Could be doing that, could be going for another Death Mountain super drop like he did earlier to go check the Hype Cave and such. But it does look like he's heading towards Ganon's Tower. This is a relatively simple clip. You actually use that wall to line up at the correct vertical position, then you just clip all the way in, and as you're releasing your spin, hold down right, and then when you land, tap right and just head up the stairs. It's a really easy clip once you know how to boots clip. And it's one of the cornerstones of Overworld glitch modes, so it's a really fun one to do. We are getting that Ganon's Tower check out of thalane now, so he will be getting the flippers out of Ice Armos if he decides to carry the right side all the way there. Otherwise, it's just junk, unfortunately. Actually, we'll be getting that second glove out of Tile Room, so... Oh, wait, he doesn't have the Cane of Samaria out of Eastern, so he's not even able to do that. Oh, no. He's gotta head to Sahasrahla. Gotta hit that, turn in the green pendant, check out Eastern Palace. I forgot he didn't have the Cane of Samaria. And from Sahasrahla, we get the Ice Rod. And combined with the Cane of Samaria from the back chest here, that gives us the ability to fully clear Turtle Rock at this point. Now, we've seen a Laser Bridge dip from baliame and a Caneless dip from thalane. We didn't find the big key in either of those areas, and there's still a few more chests with possible progression in them, so we might see another dip into Turtle Rock later on. Now, we are getting an Eastern Palace check out of the lane. This is the first time we've seen this dungeon out of either runner. Gonna be interesting to see if we find any progression in here. Unfortunately, just some junk rupees in the first chest. We're still on the lookout for hookshot as well. Hookshot and bow and mirror are the main things we're on the lookout for in terms of finding our final go mode for this seed. Baliame does have the hammer. He could check Mimic Cave, however, it's not logically an access without the mirror. He might be just heading to Ganon's Tower with that hammer to check out the rest of the basement, hopefully finding something there. Oh, that's correct. As Chad is pointing out, Swamp is a pendant. We might not actually need that mirror. I keep forgetting what the dungeons of crystals and such are. So yeah, with Swamp being a pendant, mirror might not be required, which would make getting to the Pyramid Fairy a little bit more arduous, considering we do have a clip to get into the pyramid without the big bomb. However, that does require the mirror. So if we never find the mirror, then we might have to complete some dungeons before we have access to those two chests. We do get the hint in Eastern being just that there's a heart container on a grumpy fish, which is likely referring to the catfish, as we saw from the lane side earlier. Inside the Dark Magician room, we find some keys, some arrows, some more arrows, and some junk. So far, nothing of note yet, as Thalane is finishing up Eastern Palace. Just one more chest that he can access without the bow. And we will see in just a moment what that is. Using the damage boost to go through the anti-fairies there, just some bombs. I wasn't quite counting the items in Eastern Palace. We may actually be fully done with that area. Possibly not. I'm not entirely sure. Now, the checks that Baliame is doing currently in Ganon's Tower are out of logic, because bomb jumps are not considered part of the logic, which he will have to do to get to the chest from the fire snakes here just past this warp room. So now, with the Cane of Samari, the Fire Rod, and the Ice Rod, I'm betting that Thalane is thinking, Turtle Rock sounds like a good play. We just get a small key from the Fire Snake chest in GT, heading into Random Room, the last chest that Baliame can access in the basement here. He's opened up everything else at the moment. Now, he could head up to the top of Ganon's Tower if he does the Mimic clip for the two Mimic rooms just before the big key door. However, we do know that the bow is still at large in the seed, so it might not be worth doing that at the moment. And he's deciding that, yep, that's not the case. He's not going to do that check right now. Meanwhile, Thalane is opening up the front of Turtle Rock and will likely just clear out this dungeon normally, for the most part. He's gotten a couple of the chests checked. He could also try to save some small keys by checking the chests that he can from the front, doing a Death Warp, and then clipping over to the big chest. Still on the lookout for the hookshot and the bow. Turns out we don't need the mirror. I was mistaken earlier, as Swamp is a pendant. Now, it could still be required for certain fetch quests and such, as well as bombos. So, still 3 items at large for our runners. We know that the flippers are in the chest behind Ice Armos in Ganon's Tower. We know that the other glove is at Tile Room. And we know that the hammer is at Checkerboard. And while Eastern Palace was trash, the Ice Rod is on the Green Pendant turn-in, which we've had access to for a long time. Thalane only recently did that in combination with a Eastern Palace check without the bow. So we're still on the hunt for the bow. Got to figure out where that stringy thing is. Of course, with the mitts, the hammer, and the fire rod, we could also be seeing the progression being locked in Ice Palace. However, none of our runners actually know to go into Ice Palace since they know that it is logically locked by the mitts. Now, Thalane has not gotten the glove out of Ganon's Tower, and baliame has not gotten the glove out of Turtle Rock. So they may be trying to avoid Ice Palace as much as possible. Which is certainly fine. A lot of people hate that dungeon. So Thalane did check the front chest, decided to Death Warp to the front, and head right to the big chest here. Actually, he may not have Death Warped. He might have just exited normally, so that he didn't get thrown into the fake Dark World. So now he's going to clear out the rest of Turtle Rock, excuse me, the other dungeon that starts with a T. We've got only a couple more chests that we can check here. And there's Bombos. That gives us access to Misery Mire. So we know that there's really nothing on Laser Bridge except for the powder. baliame has checked that. I don't believe Thalane has. He turned in his mushroom already and saved it. So he did not do that fake powder check. That might be something he has to double back to Kakariko later for. Meanwhile, baliame clearing out the rest of Turtle Rock normally. He has already done Laser Bridge, but nothing else other than the front chests and chomps as he's been going through this particular clear. So Thalane finishing up the Laser Bridge here, getting rid of the beetle with the Samaria block, doing some nice laser skips, and we'll be going and killing Trinex for the last item here, despite it being a pendant dungeon. Uh-oh. Bit of a death there for baliame after picking up the key. I don't think he wanted that because there is that glove in the big key chest just past the key door he was headed toward. Now that death did put him in fake Dark World, he's going to transition here and wind up in the regular Dark World here. He might wind up just going to the portal up on top using the hammer to open it up. Actually, he's already done that, so he can just go ahead and go into the warp and go to the Dark World normally. Keeping track of your world status is important in this, because fake worlds are a thing. Meanwhile, Thalane is heading to the last phase of Trinex here. Gets it done. That's another dungeon down. That's 2 pendants. Although we know that Pedestal is trash, so we're only doing this for the item out of Turtle Rock. And it's just bombs. Alright, baliame arming some spin speed to jump through that little corner to hop to this middle ledge. It's a really nice and easy way of reaching that chest, or that entrance for the big chest. Meanwhile, Thalane, with the Cane of Samaria, might be heading back into Ganon's Tower to check that right side all the way past the Ice Armos to pick up the glove and the flippers. Glove being in the Tyler Room, flippers past Ice Armos, and junk for all the rest. Ooh, another nasty death for baliame, being a little bit too high to stand on the pegs and hit the crystal switch up there. Got rocked by the roller. Alright, I assume he was doing those bonks to set up the timing for the roller in the room right there. Otherwise, he was just taking out some rage on the wall. So thalane is opting to, instead of battle the tower room, he's going to use the cape and hug a wall, which is a nice little minor glitch in that you don't lose magic as long as you're holding a wall with the cape active. Kind of nice. So baliame has already finished the laser bridge. There's one item left in Turtle Rock. I don't know if he's going to go for it from here, but he could go for Misery Mire after this. Actually, he can't go and kill Trinix. He hasn't been to the Green Pendant Turn-In for his Ice Rod. I think baliame is just getting some magic right now. Or no, he's got to check that big key chest here. Okay. And he's just beeping the Bombos low magic sound all the way. Alright, so thalane, getting the glove out of the tile room, has made his way over to the compass room in Ganon's tower, picking up all the junk, and hopefully we'll continue all the way over to get the flippers. He's got his Cane of Birna out, so he's probably going to use that in the room with the fire bars and the moving spike up ahead. It's a nice, simple way of getting through that room. baliame still tapping the button for that Bombos medallion, despite not having enough magic for it. He's got to find some before being able to go into Misery Mire. He could also be doing a Ice Palace check, since he did pick up those mitts out of Turtle Rock. Now, despite not having enough magic for Bombos, he does have enough for Fire Rod, which would get him into the dungeon. He also has that blue potion, which he could use for a magic refill if he needs that versus Cold Stare at the tail end of the dungeon. Alright, so we are getting the Ice Armos check out of thalane. He has enough magic to use the Cane of Birna strat, which is kind of nice. Meanwhile, baliame is in Ice Palace and will be checking this dungeon out for the first time on stream here. Cane of Birna clumping all of those Armos together very nicely, getting all kinds of fighter sword damage hits, unable to finish off the red one. So at this point, thalane actually wants slashes, not pokes, to be able to deal the maximum amount of damage to this last Armos, although the pokes are certainly easier to perform. Alright, so there's the flippers for thalane. And he is done with Ganon's tower for now, until he gets the hammer outside of the checkerboard cave. And I must have missed what was in the Pengator room. Must have been Hookshot. So we have that inside of Ice Palace here. baliame having a little bit of trouble with these Stalfos. Opts to use the blue potion for a refill here. Meanwhile, we're getting a King's Tomb check out of thalane, just some junk. We haven't seen that yet on stream before, so it's nice to know that we don't need to worry about that location anymore. And I imagine that thalane is actually trying to avoid Ice Palace, despite having access to it with the Fire Rod and the mitts, because he still doesn't have that hammer. Alright, so now we're far enough into Ice Palace to get some more chest checks. We do have the hook shot to make the access to the right side here a bit easier to get past that room with all the red jellyfish. Looks like thalane is opting to head into Misery Mire instead, after finding the Bombos in the Crystal Roller chest of Turtle Rock. And he's using that flute and activation to go to Misery Mire, but I guess not. Oh, he doesn't have any magic. He's not able to actually use the Bombos Medallion. He's got to get some magic first. And he already used his blue potion when he went for, what was it? When he went to... Oh, what did he do that used up his blue potion? His pod potion glitch. And then used up the rest of his magic doing the Birna strat against Ice Armos. So he's got to get some magic back before he can check out Misery Mire using the medallion for the entrance. And there's our mirror hidden away in Ice Palace. That is actually our third item, considering we got the hookshot and the bombs from the chest previous. So now we can head straight to Cold Stare from here and be done with this dungeon. Kind of interesting that both of the items we needed for Swamp Palace were hidden here in Ice. Especially a pendant swamp at that. So now after buying that green potion from the potion shop, Thalane has enough magic to use the medallion and open up Misery Mire. Powder living up to being one of the best safeties, especially for these later Dark World dungeons. The Powder is just so useful, especially in dungeons where you have all these anti-fairies everywhere. Especially close to the end of the dungeon, as we see in Turtle Rock, Ice Palace, and Misery Mire. It's really one of the nicest safeties you can ever pick up, and which is another reason why Fake Powder is also so useful, even if you can't find the real one. A decent Mire, too, out of the lane. Unfortunately, didn't quite get that one beam to hit the Tentacle Popo down at the bottom. Otherwise, a very good Mire, too. Meanwhile, baliame hitting up Cold Stare. Doesn't quite get them all clumped up in the corner. Has to use a bunch of slashes to clean them up here. Surprised he isn't switching to the Fire Rod, which is a much more effective weapon against Cold Stare than these tempered slashes, as well as having half magic on him. First chest in Misery Mire we check is a bridge chest. We get just the compass. Now, there's only 2 items we could possibly find here. We got to be on the lookout to see if our bow is possibly here. That's the only thing we really care about in this seed at this point. Where is the bow? Alright, so baliame done with Ice Palace. Could be heading to Misery Mire after this. Opts to go toward the house as a save and quit point. That's possibly one of the closest areas to the desert, and he has the mitts to be able to use that warp down there. Is opting to instead use this portal to go to the Dark World. Interesting to see if he decides to go for Misery Mire or Swamp Palace here after just getting all of the access to Swamp Palace from Ice just recently. He's heading around, opting to clip through the slope rather than pick up the big rock. I'm not entirely sure that's faster. So, regardless, he is heading over to Misery Mire to follow in Thalane's footsteps here. Clear out this dungeon, check the couple of items, hopefully find the bow. Actually, to answer a comment in chat, we know that the purple chest can't be bow. We got a hint for it later that it only has some junk, so we don't actually care what's in the purple chest at the time being. However, the smith could still have an item that we're looking for. A lucky fairy drop in Mire, too, for baliame there. Gets some nice health refill, however, gets rocked by some of the beams and magic from the Wizrobes, knocking him back down in health a bit. Thalane still clearing out the rest of the chests here in Misery Mire. Haven't seen the big key yet, which means it's got to be over in this one chest on the side. He's cleared out every other one. So there we are. There's our big key. Arguably the worst position for it. Meanwhile, Thalane, properly resetting this room, because if he had tried to go toward the big chest again, the falling bridge would have still been gone. The way that falling bridge works is that it's actually reset when you change super tiles, not when you change rooms. So doing that transition into the main lobby area with the mesh walkway was actually what he needed to do. So now he's headed into the basement. I didn't actually see if he set up the spooky action glitch from the flute to Misery Mire. He might have it set right now, which is good news for him. That could save him a bomb and some time here in the dark basement of Mire. And I didn't even catch if he did the if he kicked up dash dust before setting the block, so I still don't know if he's got it set or if he'll be using just a regular bomb to open up the wall here. Oh, he's putting out the fire rod. He does get the spooky action glitch there. Use the fire rod on the spike to displace the splash damage, thanks to the variable that was set from the from landing from the flute to 6. It's a really interesting glitch when you get it working. Alright, we'll be opting to powder this last anti-fairy here. We might see some cape strats or something out of Thalane. Could just go for some regular sword spins. That's what we're seeing. Just standard fight of Vidi for this first section here. Has plenty of hearts to braid the slime. Getting that big eye backed into the corner with all these tempered slashes. Cleans the fight up very nicely, and on Vitreous we get small key. So we did get both the items out of Misery Mire, neither of which were the bow. So at this point, it's it's pretty much guaranteed that our bow is either in some overworld location we've skipped, like the Hammer Pegs or Smith, or in Swamp Palace. Could even be Mimic Cave, since we got that mirror out of Ice Palace, and we got that hammer out of Checkerboard. Yeah, we did get that hint for Mimic Cave that there's something sharp. So that's just a sword upgrade, which would be our golden sword for the seed. So it can't be Mimic Cave. I forgot about that hint. So meanwhile, Thalane is heading toward turning in the Smith, grabs the guy, and does an immediate save and quit to bring him to Light World for the turn-in, since he does lack that mirror from Ice Palace. So this could be a combination Smith and Powder check from Thalane, as baliame is clearing out the rest of Mire here. Gets the second item out of that heart piece, the first one being in the cutscene chest. So all that's left is to beat Vitreous from here. The single arrow. Good old unique single arrow from the Smiths there. Not very nice. Alright, so now Thalane is doing the Batcave clip. He's got to clip into the slope far enough, then do a dash jump to jump over the transition, hit it from the other side, and get that nice screen wrap. Uh-oh. Didn't quite get it, and unfortunately, since he has the flippers, he's kind of stuck there in the water area. Now, supposedly there's a way out of there when you're swimming, but I don't know what it is. What thalane actually really needs to do for this seed is check out the checkerboard cave, because that is hiding his hammer. He really needs to get that. So baliame running through the dark basement. It's a bit tougher for him. That lamp we found in the bow-locked section of pod really came in handy for thalane as he was going through the mire basement. Uh-oh. thalane not quite getting that screen wrap jump again. He's buffering a bit too far into the slope for the jump that he needs. You actually don't want to buffer all the way in, just enough so that the dash jump brings you over the screen transition. He's going to give it a third try here, as baliame is going through the dark basement. Actually, he's no longer in the dark basement. He's done with it. Alright, thalane on the third try gets the jump he needs, and now just has to navigate over to land to hop out and head down to the powder bat. baliame opting to use cape strats for the vitreous eyeballs here. It actually doesn't really matter as long as you kill all these small eyes before the big eye pops out of the slime once. So unfortunately, did not quite get it, but did get some nice tempered slashes on the big eye as he's popping up to do some lightning. baliame spending all of his magic on cape strats to get as many slashes in as he can. Gets the guy killed before the cape wears off, which is kind of nice. However, you will have to wait for that full magic refill from collecting the crystal. thalane heading south here a little bit. Please be heading to checkerboard cave. Oh, looks like it. He's clipping down. There we go. There's checkerboard cave. He's going to get his hammer, which might prompt him to go for Ice Palace. And pick up the hookshot and mirror from there. Meanwhile, baliame done with Misery Mire as well. That is his 5th crystal. Still on the lookout for the bow. We need to get into Swamp Palace at this point. That's one of our densest item locations, and our bow could possibly be there. However, baliame opts instead to head for, I guess, Mimic Cave? Is that all that he's got over on this side? Now, he hasn't been into Ice Palace, so he didn't get that hint about the sword. So he could be doing that just to get this check out of the way. Possibly combine that with... Actually, I don't know. I don't know if he can combine that with a check to the catfish from Turtle Rock, because you're rather stuck on the ledge there. Unless you do a bunch of mirroring to... Oh, he could also be doing Hookshot Cave, as the chat is pointing out. He is taking out that hookshot. There are some chests here we weren't able to hit earlier. We could have hovered to them, but I don't believe either player did. So these are fresh new checks. We find our last bottle. Unfortunately, that's not what we need out of here. So we might be seeing a Mimic Cave check now. Or we could be going to Spike Cave, being in the Dark World now, as thalane opts to head to Desert to finish off Landmolas after getting the hammer out of Checkerboard. Good old 2-cycle. So baliame low on health, but has half magic and Cane of Birna. This should be good. Ends it a little bit early, just for some junk in Spike Cave. Get some spin speed to be able to get out of the area a bit quicker. Not sure what he wants to combo after this. He could try for a Pyramid Fairy check with that hammer or not hammer, the mirror that he has. He's already cleared out the basement of Ganon's Tower, and there's no point in checking the upstairs for any bow access. So he might be wrapping his screen here so that he can check the Pyramid Fairy as thalane heads into Ice Palace after finishing Desert and getting his hammer out of Checkerboard. So the way that the Pyramid Fairy clip works is that you wrap your screen, which, as I mentioned earlier, kind of desyncs your position from where the camera says you are. So globally, right now, the game thinks he's on the pyramid, so he places that mirror portal in a very precise location. Then he is going to fix his camera by going into this old man cave. And now he has to make his way over to that mirror portal that he set in the castle courtyard. He's trying to get some spin speed going. And he's trying to make sure that he doesn't get stuck from that clip there, because if you save and quit, you lose your mirror portal. So now he's heading over to check the King's Tomb, which he hasn't done yet. We'll be doing that and possibly going into the Graveyard Fairy, which, in combination with a Death Mountain Descent, will take him to Houlihan because it offset his overworld position enough for the Houlihan glitch to trigger. Meanwhile, thalane in Ice Palace has already picked up his hookshot out of the first chest with all the pen gators, and is continuing further onto the Stalfos room. Now, luckily, we haven't defeated Aga 1, so we can head right through the castle gate to be able to reach the warp that we left from wrapping the mountain screen, and he's trying to get in there in a precise way so that he can hold up and go right into this entrance, gets it first try. And inside we find the shovel and some rupees. So now we have the shovel, which is another fetch quest we can go for. Baliame checking out the pyramid item, which we know is just some junk rupees. So from here, we might see Palace of Darkness or a shovel check out of Baliame. He could also go for the hammer pegs. Despite the fact that we know the purple chest is junk, we don't know if the hammer pegs is junk. However, it looks like instead he's heading up to Catfish and could be combining that with a Palace of Darkness check. Meanwhile, thalane doing the same route that Baliame did through Ice Palace, checking the right side, getting those last couple items in bombs and mirror from these couple of hammerlocked chests, and from there we'll be finishing off Cold Stare and be done with this dungeon. Alright, with lots of money, Baliame is going to stock up on some potions, opting to just bypass that heart piece entirely, doesn't need it, and continues on to the Dark World to buy more potions. A blue and a red. What are you planning to do, Baliame? So thalane picks up the mirror out of the big key chest in Ice Palace. Done with all the items in that dungeon. Now all he has left in that dungeon is Cold Stare, as Baliame heads up to Catfish, and we'll see if he gets that heart container. He might just skip it for now. I'm really curious as to what Baliame has planned for that red potion that he has, that he went out of his way to buy after being in the potion shop and could have bought a cheaper red potion. I'm really curious. He could have just bought that just for the potion to use for a potion unlock in pod, and then have a blue potion ready for a possible fake flute later on. Still not sure. So thalane has already cleared out most of pod here, and we know that all we can really find in this dungeon is the lamp. So unfortunately, Baliame is not going to find the bow in this dungeon, and after this, our runners are relatively tied. I think Baliame has the left side of GT basements over thalane, but not much else. That was a very nice Cold Stare fight from thalane, nice and quick. He's had a lot of very good boss fights this run. Between that, Mothula, and Vitreous. Oh, I guess if Flute was in pod, that's true, but Flute is rather irrelevant in Overworld glitches, so it must have slipped my mind. We did get a hobo check earlier, just has some junk. We did see Spike Cave. We have not seen hammer pegs in terms of some locations that we haven't seen yet. We might be seeing either a Pyramid Fairy or a Ganon's Tower basement check out of the lane here. Depends which side he decides to go after jumping down the mountain here. Whips out his mirror, so he's probably heading for a Pyramid Fairy check at this point. And since the lane has the flute, he can go ahead and use that to preserve his portal, rather than go for, say, a Houlihan or other set of clips to be able to reach the courtyard without losing his mirror portal. Alright, so baliame opting to not go for the hammer jump, will instead go for the rupee hallway and get the keys out that way instead. Now, there is a key in the bow-locked section of pod, so that might hinder his progress, maybe not. But since it's bow-locked, he knows he doesn't need to go to that side. And since that's the case, I'm still curious, why does he have that red potion? Why did he specifically buy that red potion? Because he doesn't need to go to the bow-locked side of pod, unless it had the big key or something. But even then, he would still be locked out of this dungeon without the bow. I'm confused. Meanwhile, we're getting a shovel check out of the lane. I don't think we've seen this on either side. We do see that it's just a shield. And our second one at that, we know that there's another shield on the purple chest. We don't need to go and do that. However, we have seen the smith as well. There's nothing that we need to do on the smith chain. But we still need to check that hammer pegs chest. However, I think Thalane is heading into GT at this point to check out the left side of the basement. Meanwhile, baliame heading into Sahazrla, finally doing that green pendant turn-in. He's had that green pendant for over an hour, and is finally getting that ice rod, which opens up Trinix, who does have an item, although it's junk. So I'm interested to see if baliame will do a dip into Turtle Rock just for that. So as Thalane is clearing out the left side of GT basement, which doesn't have anything of import to us, baliame is heading into Eastern, which also doesn't have anything of import for us. So as these runners are tracing their steps, I'd like to remind you all, go ahead and give these runners a follow. They're giving us a great show today with this seed, showing off a whole bunch of the potential for overworld glitches, as well as regular, all-around good execution. Thank you, Michael, for the command in chat. I was just about to do that. Actually, another good point from chat from Swift Saint 68. There's a possibility that our bow is in Thieves Town Big Chest. We did skip that early on since we did not have the hammer yet. That is another potential location for our bow. So taking another trip to Village of Outcasts could be pretty useful for deciding to clean up these last couple of ancillary spots before committing to a full Swamp Palace check. Alright, so that's the last of the basement for Thalane. He is done with Ganon's Tower for now until he finds the bow. Meanwhile, baliame seems to be done with Eastern, I think. I can't remember if there was an item at the big key chest or not. I think there was. And he might be skipping it for now? I don't remember. In any case, thalane is keeping his screen wrapped. He could be going for another Death Mountain Super Drop to head down to Swamp Palace very quickly. And away we go. Actually, another good point in chat. Perhaps baliame did not check the that last chest in Eastern because the lamp was on the bow-locked side of Pod, which means that the bow could not be in that last chest of Eastern. Ooh, thalane, please, just walk straight up. Okay, you're fine. Whew. So, it was a little dangerous there for thalane for a moment because he did a map wrap. And map wraps are rather finicky. If you press the wrong direction when your map is wrapped like that, basically going off the bounds of the regular world map, you can possibly wind up in a hard-locked position. In addition to possibly hitting a broken transition from the wrong side, which is another way to get a nice hard lock. So it was a little scary there for thalane, but he's fine. Now these transitions are taking a bit longer than usual due to the fact that his screen is horribly scrolled away from where the game actually thinks he is. However, once he's done with going in and out of Swamp Palace here, it'll be completely fixed. So this is our first dip into Swamp Palace proper. I don't recall if we've seen the hint out of this area, but it does look like that baliame is doing the turtle rock climb into a mirror wrap to head to the laser bridge. Now that mirror wrap is out of logic, however, we've already seen the rest of Turtle Rock, so this is fine as a nice quick means of reaching Trinix at the tail end of the dungeon here. Now we did get a hint earlier on in the seed that the left side of Swamp is junk, so there's not too much for us to check. We do need to see if we can find that big key. We also know that it's not on the left side, so that's very nice for our runners here. baliame just kind of tanking some anti-fairy hits, decides to powder that anti-fairy, feeling a little more comfortable with some more hearts after picking up that fairy. Alright, so a little bit of ice on the floor for baliame's Trinix fight. Oh, that's going to mess up his ice head hits there. Look, but he's glad he grabbed that fairy now. He's got to get some more hits there. Alright, ice head down onto the second phase of Trinix. As thalane is going through the roundabout in Swamp, inside we find a map. Where's that bow? Alright, so Trinix is down for baliame. That's the second pendant, but that dungeon is done. Those items are all clear, and it's possible that our bow is in Swamp Palace here. There's still Hammer Pegs and Thieves Town Big Chest as well. Maybe a couple of other locations that we've missed. We have already cleared out the basement of GT, so we know that the bow cannot be there, as we need the bow to be able to climb the rest of the tower. So we're just on a hunt for this bow. Not too much left for this dungeon. Thalane did get the big key, and is checking the big chest. Just some rupees. Inside the waterfall chest, we get the bow! There it is! We're done with Swamp. So that is go mode for our runners. There's still 2 dungeons they need to finish before finishing off this seed, in addition to killing off Aghanim 2. So now we have to go and finish off Palace of Darkness and Eastern, then clear the top section of Ganon's Tower, kill Aga 2, kill Ganon, be done. Now, we actually have the big keys for both of these dungeons already found by both runners, so these dungeon clears should be relatively quick, but they still have to do that and climb the tower, so this might not be a sub 2C. There's just a bit too much to be able to finish under the 2-hour mark, but that's alright. We still got a nice race going on here. There's still potential for a comeback if something unfortunate happens on Thalane's side. I don't believe he has his bottles filled like baliame does. But Thalane's execution has been on top of things here. Has been doing very well, not only with boss fights, but with general execution. So, it's Thalane's race to lose at this point. Alright, baliame's still working through Swamp. We know the bow is in the waterfall chest, so he's got to make it that far. If he opts to go for the waterfall chest before heading back after getting the big key, he might save a little bit of time. However, Thalane is already most of the way through Pod, is now in the basement section, up to Turtle Party. And I'm not sure if baliame actually needs to find a small key either. He might need to go and do the Bullock section of Pod to get that small key. So that could put baliame a bit further behind as he enters Pod later on. Alright, there's the big key, and baliame does decide to double back for the big chest. Unfortunately, it's just junk, and will waste a little bit of time as baliame goes back and forth between the big chest and waterfall to get the bow. Meanwhile, Thalane finishing up Helmasaur with a silver arrow to the face. And that is the 6th crystal down for Thalane. Gonna equip the mirror before catching the crystal, head right into Eastern Palace, kill off Armos, and head straight to Ganon's tower. Alright, so there's the bow for baliame. He leaves immediately, and we'll be heading over to Palace of Darkness and Eastern. I guess he's keeping it in the Dark World for now, rather than opting to... I guess he never activated his flute, so he's got to take, unfortunately, a bit of a long trek between not only all these Overworld screens, but also possibly through the Bush Maze to get back to the entrance of Palace of Darkness. So that activated flute coming in handy for Thalane. Alright, Thalane heading to the last few rooms of Eastern. Just a few more, has plenty of silver arrows, doesn't feel the need to pick up any of these arrow pots. As baliame is entering Palace of Darkness, he does still have a small key, which is good for him. He does have that big key, so now he can head straight for the boss, does not need to do the Bullock side. Although he's doing it anyway, we'll be getting that lamp possibly out of the chests. That little bit of indecision, makes me feel like he's not so confident in how he's doing in this seed. He's got a lot of ground to make up here between not only finishing this dungeon, but also Eastern, as Thalane finishes up a quick Armos with the silver arrows. Alright, Thalane done with Eastern, fluting to the mountain as baliame picks up a small key and the lamp from the Bowlock section of Pod. He has the big key, he has all he needs, and just needs to finish off the dungeon here. So Thalane doing another Ganon's Tower clip. I believe this is his 4th trip into Ganon's Tower? I think it's his 4th trip. I know he went in once without the Cane of Samaria, then once with it, then once with the hammer, and I think this is number 4. Alright, a decent first Mimics room for Thalane. A good second room, as baliame is heading through the dark basement of Pod, heading into the Turtle Party rooms. Oh, thought Thalane tried to do a nice little swag bow dash, but didn't quite pull it off, was a little too far to the right, and bonked off of the crystal switch. Bit of a crapshoot if that dash was going to work to get him through the spikes. Decided to take it anyway. Now Thalane heads into the Gauntlet, series of 5 rooms that get progressively harder as you go along, enemies and conveyors. And then we add Beamos to the equation, as baliame is fighting Helmasaur. Gotta get those 17 hammer hits on the mask before it explodes, and will likely be just throwing a silver arrow to the face to finish the boss off. Third room of Gauntlet, we get more Beamos, more conveyors, and add some spikes on the ground. And now we add some ice to the equation, making movement even harder still. And then the final room of Gauntlet, full ice, with another fireball shooter. Trying to maneuver on the ice is kind of tricky with the way that momentum is preserved through sword slashes and item usage. Thalane opting to powder that bunny beam right before the Lanmo 2 fight. Picks up some silver arrow kills here. Nice one cycle. As baliame is now done with Palace of Darkness, heads into Eastern to go finish off Armos and get his last crystal there. Thalane up to the Wizrobes rooms. Cane of Samaria, the best and most satisfying strat for that room. It's so satisfying to get 3 of them killed with one blast. A couple of torch rooms before the upstairs chests in Ganon's Tower, right before Molnorm 2. Thalane nearly done with Ganon's Tower, pulling off a nice couple of dashes, including that rod dash, to get out of the room a little bit quicker. Almost out of magic, but that's fine. There is a full magic refill in one of the later pots in the next room here. Just gotta bomb open the wall, kill Moldorm 2, maybe. Might see a hover, I don't know. There's that full magic refill, pulls out the hook shot. We're gonna see a Moldorm 2 kill. One spin with the tempered. One dash, which is equivalent to a slash, is enough to kill him, as baliame is entering the last few rooms of Eastern. Just a little bit left before facing Armos here. Again, easy fight with the silver arrows. Both of our runners in different boss fights. We've got Armos versus Geometry Wizard. Armos done with a nice 3 hit on the first cycle for Thalane on Aga 2. 1 on the second cycle, so he's up to 4, just needs 2 more. There they are. Aghanim 2 down in 3 cycles. And all that's left for Thalane is to kill Ganon, as baliame still needs to climb Ganon's tower to defeat Aghanim 2. Alright, baliame opting to keep his camera wrapped, which is certainly fine for the Ganon's Tower clip. And actually, considering how Thalane's time looks going into this Ganon fight, I must have been wrong. He is going to be able to get a sub 2 hour time relatively easily, especially with those silver arrows, and getting this nice, simple 2 first phases of Ganon. There's 12 hits each, onto the 3rd phase already. It's all down to warps. Now, I don't think there's going to be enough warps for Ganon to use to delay far enough for the sub 2 dream to be over. Alright, that was the last hit of the 3rd phase for Thalane. Up to the 4th. Makes him blue, gets 1 arrow in, goes for the torch glitch, gets it. Gonna get another arrow in before Ganon warps back down below. Can you get last 2 hits here? 1, 2, Ganon is dead. Very nice silver arrow fight, keeping Ganon kind of locked in that corner. Congratulations to Thalane. Drop your GGs in chat as he finishes with an official SRL time of 1 hour, 56 minutes, and 7 seconds. Congratulations, Thalane. We're going to see if we can get him in here for an interview as baliame finishes out the rest of the gauntlet here, the rest of Ganon's Tower. So we will see if he'll join us here in just a moment. So overall, this seed had some rather nasty item placements. Fire Rod was nice and early on. We had mitts out of Turtle Rock and Ganon's Tower. Both accessible before we even found the Cane of Samaria. But the major stumbling block, at least for Thalane in this one, was getting that hammer out of the checkerboard cave, and then carrying that into Ice Palace, which then unlocked Swamp Palace to finally get the bow. And our runners basically doing everything they can to avoid Swamp Palace as much as possible, especially because earlier on in the seed, they did get a hint that left side was garbage, meaning that there was less likely of a chance for something to be there. However, the odds not in their favor, decided to put something in there anyway. However, if we do wind up getting baliame in for this interview, I'm going to ask him what he was getting that red potion for. I'm really curious why he bought that. Just a couple rooms left for baliame up here at the top of the tower. None of the chests are needed. We know our 4th sword is in the Mimic Cave, so there's not even anything we could reasonably grab from chests to make our life any easier. Although it would make it easier if our bombs actually hit the walls when we want them to explode. Ooh, nasty fall on Moldorm 2 for baliame there. Didn't quite get the hit on the tail from the dash. Instead, it gets knocked off. I wonder if those arrows are just the seed kind of remedy getting to a baliame that, haha, your last item was bow. Alright, so now we're up to the Geometry Wizard for baliame. We'll see if he gets the triple on the first phase, just like thalane did. Not quite. That second energy shot just barely missing. Misses entirely on the second one. Uh-oh. Only 2 hits so far. Gotta get 4 more. 3. Ooh. A little bit harder there. And we're joined by thalane. How you doing, man?
Hey, doing good. What's up? Man, that was special, I would say.
Yeah, it had some rather nasty item placements for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only part that was like okay-ish in that seed for myself was the execution. Like, routing, I think, could have been way better. I mean, obviously that hammer was kind of unlucky because I really didn't want to go there for just that one item. And I think I didn't have the gloves the last time I checked it, so that was kind of me wanting to, you know, if I go to Misery Maya, I hope I have the mirror by then to just mirror over instead of, you know, run all the way from Link's house or Kakariko to check it. So that was really awful.
Yeah, and then your mirror wound up in Ice Palace, which you wanted to have the hammer before you go in there. So
yes,
it just compounded the issue for you.
Yeah,
we did actually make some notes of your boss fights. They were very good for the most part.
Yeah, I think boss fights were really okay. And as I said, like execution in general was definitely better than I was doing lately at all. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, then I guess like glitch execution on the other hand, there was a couple of glitches where I was like, dude, what are you doing here? Especially that. Especially that. Yeah. Yeah,
the race game and the powder bat clip. Yeah, those were the two that stood out to me as just didn't quite understand. Which, by the way, for that race game, you were fine, except you needed to dash turn to the side to be able to get the item. The dash turn is important.
Oh, right.
That's the only thing you were missing there.
Let's see if I have written that down on my notes, actually. If not, I should probably add that, because like you may have noticed, I entered that screen. I was standing still for like a second or two. That's when I like.
I was wondering if you were looking something up.
yeah, I was picking up my notes because I was like, if there's an item I really want to have this ready, and usually I load like I have like one page of, you know, like small stuff. Let's say for like King's Tomb, because I always forget like which directions to tap and to be able to pick up that stone and like all that kind of stuff, right? And I also have that for the maze item, but yeah, I usually have that open before the race. This time I kind of forgot, and yeah. So let's see if I have that. No, I don't have the dash turn, so I should probably add that.
Meanwhile, baliame has finished up, and he has an official SRL time of 2 hours, 2 minutes, and 58 seconds. Go ahead and drop your GGs in chat for him. And alongside that, go ahead and give our runners a follow. They put on a good show for us here today.
And yeah, I wanted to go into Swamp way earlier, to be honest, because I felt really behind because it didn't go that well. Like, glitch execution was horrible, and that hammer was kind of not what I wanted. So I thought about, you know, trying to make a big brain play or whatever, but I held off until I at least had done the rest of GT, because I felt like that's kind of not okay to do Swamp before that.
Yeah, especially with just so many items being possible in GT. Although I think you went in there 4 times this seed. You went once without the cane, once with the cane, once with the hammer, and then once with the bow at the tail end.
Yes. Yeah, I mean that's how it goes sometimes, I guess. Cause
Yeah.
I was really thrown off by the hint that said a unique item is in plain sight, but I guess it was just the ether medallion in desert. But I didn't really think about it that much. So
Could
I
have also
thought
been that
maybe.
moon. Could have also been that moon pearl that was on race game at the very
Oh,
start too.
yeah, that's right. I forgot about that actually. But yeah, so I thought, oh, I don't think I've gotten that yet. Like I try to not think about it, you know. Like I'm not thinking too hard about stuff during a race, so I thought, hey, not sure if I got that, so let's check GT Torch, because I think that's like the only place I've left. It's like in plain sight, so I went there and there was like a small key, so I was like, alright, ether, okay, let's move on. So yeah.
Yeah. Although one thing that actually helped you out quite a bit toward this tail end here, you were a bit ahead of baliame getting out of Swamp Palace, but what actually pulled you a bit further was activating the flute, because you were able to flute from Swamp all the way over to Pod almost immediately, whereas he actually decided to take a trek on the Overworld and the Dark World to get over there, so you were able to save a fair bit of time, even though we like to rag on the flute and Overworld glitches. It came in handy for you here.
Yeah, I usually don't like to activate it as well, but what did I do? I checked King's Tomb, right? And then I wanted to activate the flute, like stock up on magic on the witch, which I also forgot on the first trip, and then go to Misery Mire because I was out of magic. And then I went to Misery Mire, and then like I went through the portal. I was like, wait, you don't have magic. That's what you wanted to do. And then yeah, I had to save and quit and redo that part, I guess.
A fair bit of time, even though we like to rag.
And then I checked Hobo and then went to the witch, so it was okay.
Yeah, I usually don't like
It's
to
fine.
activate it as well, but what did I do? I checked King's Tomb.
Yeah, congratulations.
Right?
So I think I was seeing in chat that this is your 4th win for the group so far.
It's actually the 5th one because I won.
Okay, you had 4 already.
Yeah, I won twice against Doomtab. Then like AHP like dropped from the tourney, so that's 4 wins already, and now it's the 5th win against baliame. So that's pretty good, I think, at this point. I don't know what the other guys are at. Let's see. So yeah, looking pretty good so far, actually.
And we're joined by baliame. I see that you're answering in chat. What I was going to ask you, what was with that red potion that you bought after the blue one? I was so confused by that for a while.
It was just to use for a potential right side big key. But like, what I didn't really like, I don't know why I thought that I needed a red, and I blame no logic for it because now I'm starting to think with bloody potion colors for the pod, for the PC.
Yeah, for that camera unlock thing. I was wondering if you were thinking that, but I realized, wait, you're kind of on the lookout for the bow at the time, but you know that the bow can't be over there, and anything locked behind it can't lead to the bow either, so maybe you were going to abandon that train of thought or something, which is, I think, what you wound up doing.
Yeah, it's just purely that that big key that was concerning me at that moment. Like I knew that the right side was otherwise irrelevant. I was specifically checking for the keys in the fronted part to match up with like access to the back. Then as soon as I realized that the lamp has to be bow locked, I was just looking for a key in dark basement. So basically, that went through my mind at the part time. Also, although I was not particularly thinking clearly because god damn that seed was awful.
Yeah, the whole progression for Swamp being locked in Ice Palace with the hammer being on Checkerboard Cave, you guys both got that pretty late, especially after clearing Thieves Town early on for both of you. I was wondering if Thieves Big Chest was in the back of your minds for a long time in there, especially after finding that hammer so late.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean it's always a concern, right? But I don't know. There was still a couple of spots left before it became really worrying for me. So I thought, like, I didn't think too much about it after I got the hammer and all the good stuff out of Ice Palace, because I still had like Hookshot Cave, like the left side GT, which I ended up doing. What else? Swamp Palace, I guess. Mimic Cave. So there was a couple of spots left before I considered that.
I was going to just for the record, very very last location. Like literally, once I've gone through Thieves and found the hammer right immediately after, I'm like, no way. That's going after pedestal.
Yeah, that's one of those locations where if you wind up having to skip it early on due to that late hammer, a lot of people will just leave it for the very end and just kind of resign themselves to if something's there that I've lost.
Yeah, but that's good that many people do that, because otherwise, like, if you know your opponent tends to, go back for these kind of chests very early again, you're in trouble. Like, yeah, that's not the opponent you want to play against, I think. At least I don't want to play against that.
Speaking of which, thalane, I'm looking at your finishing screen, and I noticed that you also have the blue pendant. I made that play because I assumed you probably wouldn't, and you head with it.
Well, what wound up happening is you checked Sahasrah early on and had the Cane of Samaria before going into Turtle Rock. Unfortunately, thalane did not earlier on and did a Turtle Rock check before getting the cane. And when he finally went to go get the cane, he already had Hera defeated, so he got both the cane and the Ice Rod. And so he was able to do the rest of Turtle Rock all in one go up through Trinix, who apparently had a junk item on him.
Oh, makes sense.
Yeah, I was, my routing was really unfortunate in this seed. I think the only location I had left before, for the hammer was Checkerboard and Ice Palace, so it was pretty fun too. Even, especially because I said, okay, let's try not to last location stuff this time, and then it happened again, so yeah, yikes. Not my favorite tournament so far, because all 3 races I've participated in were all last locations, or close to last locationing stuff.
I don't know how this keeps happening. This is my 5th race in this tournament, and 5 out of the 5 seeds, only 1 seed was any kind of not last location type, bearable type of thing.
Well, that's kind of the rub when you play Overworld glitches, with everything being available from the start. If you wind up skipping anything, it can wind up biting you in the ass.
Yeah, that's just my rule for, that kind of stuff. Just don't skip stuff, because it you don't want to leave something somewhere. It's really not what you want to do.
Honestly really destroyed me this seed, because I was in Turtle Rock opening the laser bridge chest, and the reason that I didn't continue was that because the first thing I found was powder, and I'm like, yeah, unique item in Turtle Rock, that's it, right? Oh, no.
Yeah, if you'd gone just a little bit further into the Crystal Roller room and picked up that Bombos, man, that would have changed the seed a fair bit.
If I do at that spot Turtle Rock all the way up to the front, I would have saved 20 minutes. Just as simple as that. I would have had Misery Maya right when I went to check the medallion. I would have had that Ice Palace dip, and Swamp would have been a little bit more appealing at that point. Oh well.
Oh well, we still have a second game, right? Maybe we can end this with one win for each, so that's gonna be cool.
Yeah, this wasn't truly last location, so I fear what comes next here.
Well, hey, now that you forfeit the last couple of races I've been a part of, so that's at least on the up and up on my end. In any case, congratulations to the both of you. Do you have any last thoughts before we wrap this up?
I just want to say thank you so much for both you and Shiku to hop in last minute to make this restream possible. Yeah, that's basically it. Thanks for baliame for the fun race. I think it was pretty good. I also already saw a clip where we were in sync for a minute or something, going from Ice Red Cave to Zora. That was pretty cool. But yeah, thanks everyone.
That was pretty nuts and very enjoyable to watch. And this race overall was very enjoyable to commentate. baliame, anything?
Yeah, thank you for hopping in, as thalane said, last minute as crew. That's pretty nice. GG, thalane. I'm coming for you. I'm going to get that one.
Yeah, dude, I'm waiting.
And Special thanks to Michael K for putting those bomb clips at the top of the channel, because that way I didn't lose interest by the time I scrolled down, and I actually learned them.
All right, with that, we're going to wrap up this broadcast. Thank you all for watching, and we will catch you all later.